All right, what's up, everybody? Sometimes at the beginning of training camp, I like to think to the end of it and then try to work backwards. How do we get things done that we want to get done? You know, you create a map to go back from there. So there are so many things that I'm looking forward to, but to sum it up, this camp will be challenging, it'll be demanding, and it's also going to be fun as hell. And this is where we start, writing the chapter of what this 2024 Commanders team will be about. So having fun and working really hard, those two things should be synonymous. And so being here alongside with AP, hell yeah, let's get it rolling. So with that, I'll turn it over to AP, and then we'll open it up to questions for you guys.
Yeah, not much to add. You hit it on the head there, DQ, but just really want to thank really this community, our fans. They've embraced us really, really well. They've embraced our families. We couldn't feel more welcome, and we really couldn't be more excited. We're pumped about this group, about this year, and fired up to get started. It came fast, and I can't wait to get out there on the grass tomorrow. So
Right.
With that, go ahead and fire away.
All right, John Keim, ESPN for Dan. What is the plan for Jaden as far as working with, how you talk about competition? What's that going to look like? Is he going to rotate? Is he going to work with the ones? And how's that going to look?
Yeah, and I that's a good question, John, because it's probably leading to Jaden starting and when is that happening. So this is a great time to discuss it, and I want you to know it's not a secret, but it is a journey and a process. And so as we're going, when he's ready, we'll know, and when he's ready, he'll also know. But as far as the reps go, obviously with him and Marcus and moving around, there'll be certain days that will feature more of another. But like I said, I'm glad that you brought it up, and certainly not a secret. It's a journey and a process. And so through practices, through scrimmages and preseason games, all the way down, that's where the journey will take us. And then I'm not trying to hold back the info, but when we know, we'll say it.
And then for both of you, you guys have been around in the game a while, and so you worked with Russell when he was younger, at least you've been with young quarterbacks. What have you learned from those situations that you can apply to help Jaden's development?
So I think it's one size doesn't fit all, and you want to make sure for not just at quarterback, but at any position. And development doesn't just continue to go straight up. There's some days it goes good, days not, and you keep pushing to go. So I think the biggest process, why I like training camp, sometimes I work from what I'm hoping to see, and then we start working back from there. So going through the offense, having an off season, do that helps a lot. But more importantly, the connection, the chemistry with the players, and really identifying the things that they do best, and then trying to build around that.
I think you nailed it there, but just our my experience with young quarterbacks too. Like DQ said, it's not one size fits all, and I think everybody can see when that's happening, when they're ready. That the team knows, the coaches know. So you don't want to fast track it, you don't want to slow it down. You just want to let it happen naturally. And I know these guys are going to be great in doing that. So.
Ben Standig with The Athletic. For both of you, this is the time of year where people ask predictions. Well, how is this team going to finish? Things like that. I won't ask for records. But for you guys, what counts as a successful season this year?
I think number one, we want to start off and make sure like our identity and who we are and how we play, that has to come along strong, Ben. And that part, if you get that first and get that right, that's when a lot of the success will follow. But you can't, put the record before you have the identity and who you are. And so I'm hopeful that when you and our fans and families see us play, they see that identity coming to life, the speed, the physicality, the winning football in the most critical moments. Those are all the things that are going to make up our identity, and we've got to use this time to start establishing that in the very best of ways.
Yeah, we've both at our press conferences when we first started, right? That was the thing we both said is you're going to see how we play, you're going to feel how we play, and that's the first thing. And how fast or slow that goes is so many different things that are variables and all that. But I can tell you that you're going to see a great effort team, a competitive team playing fast and physical, and we've seen that out there all spring, and excited to see it here in camp.
I think it probably goes back also to Adam and the staff, to what it was from the players that we were trying to bring in through free agency and the draft, and so that also is a part of the identity. And so knowing that it's meshing together through scouting, through coaching, through the players, that's where the success will come.
And also the staff got filled out a bit more since we spoke to you last. Brandon Sosna, Dave Gardy came in there somewhere, among others. Just curious if you could just kind of lay out, Adam, what went to bringing in some of these people, and how do you kind of view the group right now?
Yeah, we first of all, you mentioned two great additions, and there's a lot more than that. But well, Josh really tasked us with creating a great front office, a great football operation, and so he gave us the latitude to go out there and get the best out there. And so we were able to do that, and we're proud of the people that we brought in. It's been incredible since they've been in here, the additions they've made, and really taken off, DQ and my plate in terms of the things that they do so well. And we feel we're close to being staffed to where we need to be in terms of when you look at around the league and you do comparisons and you see what the great teams in the league, what they look like, and we feel we're well on our way to that. So we're very, very, very happy.
First to coach Chick Hernandez, WSA 9. You've been through this before. You learned a lot about yourself. You self-evaluated. In this process now, part number 2, where do you feel like you have shown a different strength as you prep your team?
Yeah, I think that's a good question, Chick. And I think probably like a player where the game slows down. When you get perspective and time to see how things do, coaching does as well. And you want to apply new things to how we do it. And you may see some changes. Early brought rookies in. That's something I hadn't done before, and I liked that process. I like, getting them the jump start. You may see us working into red zone early on, where I hadn't done that before. The old model, this is what you did in the spring, and this is what we did at training camp. Well, there's ways to adjust and to change on those things, and so those would be, 2 examples of finding change and things that you think you can get better at, and then applying them.
And Adam, first go around as the top dog, as a GM. What's the stress level for you? Where does your stress come from right now as we get ready for a season? Where do you find it?
I think it's constant, right? And you're always thinking about ways to improve the team, what you can do better. But tying into your first question, I think with DQ, with his being his second go around, and how intentional and deliberate he was on learning from the things that he learned in Atlanta, has helped me immensely in terms of having someone who's been through it, and helping me along the way. I can't thank him enough for that, and that part really impressed us all during the interview process, and it's come to life here. So whatever stresses I have, I know I can go to him, and he'll relieve them, and as best he can. Some things he can't, but that's not your fault.
Back at you.
But no, I think having this partnership is I'm really thankful for, and we'll be prepared for whatever comes our way.
Dan, Mitch Tischler, Monumental Sports. You talk a lot about physicality and speed. What kind of is your approach to training camp, and how do you kind of handle the balance of wanting to see those guys get ready for football season, but also, not wanting to get injured? Do you want to see pops on days those guys are in pads?
Yeah, I think the analogy sometimes I use with the team is it's much like a boxer who's sparring, and you have to be in control, and you have to take care of it, because you don't see if you got into a gym and watch somebody spar, it's not exactly the same as being in a fight. And practicing, you want to as competitive as we can, but we also know we're taking care of one another, and that's part of the brotherhood to go. So you want to push the competition as much as you can, but also much like sparring and getting ready, that you're always in control. If somebody's out of control, they'll play out of control, and it may look like chaos, but the discipline that we'll play with will really be evident to you.
To your left, Steve Wino, Associated Press. We switched the mic on you. Adam, you turned over, I think, 2/3 of this roster. I'm wondering kind of how you feel about the kind of the group you brought in, the 90 guys who are here, and going into camp, how much change there has been.
Yeah, I think first and foremost, like DQ said earlier, we brought in a type of player we thought, as much as we can that are commanders. And I think you guys saw that a little bit out in the spring. And so we're thrilled about the 90 guys we have here. We're always, DQ preaches competition every day, so we're always going to look at ways to improve the roster. But as it sits now, we feel great about the guys we have. And in my experience, just seeing what we did out in the spring, what you guys did out in the spring, the way we practiced, the way they gelled together really fast was really, really impressive. And it just speaks to the type of coaches we have and the type of players we have.
And Dan, as someone coming as a new coach, do you like the clean slate aspect of it, of having a group that there's not a whole lot of kind of holdovers?
I think when you're starting anything, there's a freshness and a newness that goes with that. I love each of the years, because not every year is exactly the same. So knowing that there's some new connections and new people here, those relationships to start them is good. But I'd be also remiss in year 2 and 3, those get stronger and deeper and as you're going. But you only get one first shot with a whole new group, and we're not going to miss that shot.
And Coach David Aldridge with The Athletic. I'm wondering, in terms of working backwards, as you said,
Yep.
do you expect certain position groups to be ahead of other position groups as you go through the season or as you start this process?
Yeah, I think it's a fair question, David. I think I don't know if it's a position group, but it certainly is the line of scrimmage, and the ways that it happens now. Some of the padded work to go, that is different. Like that's not running routes and playing 7-on-7. So both sides of the line of scrimmage, I think that not just for our team but for all, that's where you really are trying to work those skills as you can. The combinations of blocking, the combinations in pass rush done. So lines of scrimmage, I would say, are the ones, I don't know if they're behind, but I think league-wide positions, that really gets the emphasis, and most teams are improving in that spot as the season's going.
And Coach, now that you've had your staff together and you've gone through OTAs and all that, what do you expect your staff strength to be this season as you start to put your stamp on this organization?
Yeah, and I think at the front of it is teaching and developing players. And so all the way back from when Adam and I got together, the importance of that, knowing that it's not just year 1 to year 2. How does the 5th-year player get better, the 6th-year player? So finding those things, detailing it out, how to improve for players and coaches, that's what I'm expecting to see from the guys.
JP Finley with NBC4 and 106.7 The Fan. A lot of crazy stuff happens during the NFL break, social media, all kinds of weird stuff. But you guys actually had another player post practice footage. What was the reaction in the building? How do you handle that?
I think first and foremost, he didn't have practice footage, so
Still, maybe.
yeah. So, but we handled it internally, and we're unconcerned with that. Yeah.
And then just for you then, Adam, going forward, how do you balance the big long-term goals here with the immediacy of the coming season?
Yeah, it's
Maybe for
great.
both.
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's something you're always trying to do constantly. Seeing the big picture, but also we're here to win games, and we're here. This is a not for long league, right? And so, we have a great staff that's always looking ahead 2-3 years, led by Brandon, in terms of salary cap and all those types of things. But we're really focused, myself and Lance are really focused on how we can help our team win right now. So we're always ready to help win right now while having all of us really keep one eye on the future and make sure we're able to sustain success for a long time.
Sam Fortier with the Washington Post for either of you. Why is it important to not name Jaden the starter now? Is it keeping him motivated? Is it managing expectations? Why is that?
I can certainly hit that one. Certainly not motivated. This is a extremely motivated player. At every position, this is the case. And we've got great confidence, all of that. But like I said earlier, it's not one size that fits all. So as we're going through this whole process, let's make sure if we are going to be about the competition and how things are going to go, we're not going to miss one step of their development. And that's what this time of year is for. So we're going to make sure we're able to use all of that time.
And Adam, as you were building the roster, I'm curious, what made you confident, hey, if with our offensive line, with Cornelius Lucas, if he were the starting left tackle, what made you confident that he could hold down that role?
Yeah, just watching the tape and understanding what type of player he is, what type of person he is, talking with the previous staff and people that have been with him. So we felt, confident in him as a person, and then watching the tape, I think, as a pass protector, Cornelius is really, really good. And so we got really good coaches that can help him with our skills and develop, like Coach said, in terms of whether it's year 1, year 2, or, as you're a veteran, you can still get better. And so he did really well out here in this spring, and so we feel confident that he can still continue to do that.
I'm Nikki Jeffala with the Washington Post. Are there positional groups going in that you feel are more open in terms of just opportunities for jobs to be had?
Yeah, I think that's fair, Nikki. There's certain spots that have more, although there's competition at a lot of spots. Certainly like defensive tackle is not as competitive in terms of how we would feature some of the players. But, I think, as we're going through it, it'll kind of play its way out. But how does the chemistry work? And then also, Nikki, like not just the competition at the position, but like what specific things make a player unique, and then how would we play that player. So say we had 18 players or so play on offense and defense, and what specific things does this tight end do versus this back? What about this DB versus this linebacker? So finding the roles and owning those are as important as the competing, because once we establish what those roles are, now we can plug and play in people into doing those things.
Yeah, I think DQ and his staff are as creative as anyone in this whole entire league, if not the best, in terms of being able to do that. So, it's not just, 3 linebackers, four defensive linemen, whatever it is, finding the best 11 for each package, and DQ is a master at that. It's, we talk about superpowers. That's one of his superpowers, and Joe Witt's great at that too. And offensively, Cliff's shown that. He did that in Arizona too. So, we're really excited to see how that really evolves during camp.
And you guys placed Johnny Newton on NFI. I mean, what are just your expectations for him as he kind of progresses through his recovery?
Yeah, so with Johnny, first and foremost, Johnny's been outstanding in his rehab, and we've had to hold him back. Nice catch. Yeah. We really had to hold him back. Like he's a monster, and he wants to go, and we got to make sure to reel him back. That's the type of guy he is. And so we've been really pleased with his progress. We put him on NFI. I think we're just going to exercise caution. We're not playing any games anytime soon, but we expect it to be sooner rather than later that we release the reins. And we're going to keep an eye on him, throughout. Like I said, it's July, so we're going to keep an eye on him, but let him develop during training camp as well. He needs to get the reps just like everybody else. And so we're excited where he's at.
Scott Abraham, ABC 7. For some guys, they dread training camp. In a sense, it's a grind, it's a long process. Some are excited. For you guys, both of you answer, please. What is this like for you, the start of training camp, something new? Kind of explain those emotions of going into a new camp.
Yeah, training camp's a cool thing, and it's definitely different than it used to be. As I look back to my first training camp in 2001, it's in 2 days and that type of thing. It was a different process, but as you go now, it's evolved and it's different, but it's also really fun. There's a challenge that goes along with it during that time, but it's also there's a lot of joy with it because you're spending so much time together. You're the team chemistry is building. There's a lot that goes into this, so it's an important part of the process for us. One of the things that I've been pleased about here is Adam and I are fired up to get rocking, as you would think, but what's even more cool is seeing the players, how excited they are. Over the last few days, you see somebody in the building and their excitement to go. It's not a spot where you may have come in dreading training camp. Oh no, here we go. It's my experience today of seeing the guys come in has been just the opposite. So to see that kind of energy coming into a camp really fires both of us up.
Yeah, I agree. The guys have come back early because they're chomping at the bit to be here, and so that's really cool. You don't see that too often, and like DQ said, it's not like the Junction Boys anymore where you're soft if you get water. I mean, there's water everywhere now, and so it's not the same, but the part where you get to be all together for so long during the day, you still have that, and building the team, and I couldn't be more excited. This is the most excited I've ever been for a training camp, so I'm pumped and fired up to be on the ride with all these guys and this guy especially.
Dan, you talked about the identity, developing an identity with this football team. As you go through this process week after week here at camp, what exactly are you looking for to know this identity is coming together? What do you have to see?
Yeah, I think you have to see, while playing really fast, excellent execution. And so those are the standards that you're looking for, the details of the play, the execution of the play, and then at a max speed. And so you don't get to pick and choose when that is. You just have to go, and then the next play and the next play. And so having that standard, that's what I'm looking for. That's part of identity. You'll feel the speed when we play. Those will come out to life at practice over and over and over, the execution and the speed again and again and again. That's when it starts to come to life, because now it's not as much thinking, but just the reaction and the movements that have to be explosive and fast.
George Wallace, WTOP for Coach. What's the one thing you're looking for tomorrow when you guys hit the field after the break and your message to the team before you left? What's the one thing that you're going to see tomorrow on the field to know that these guys kind of stuck with it, during that time off? Because I'm sure it's kind of tough. They get away a little bit and they get a month off before coming back.
Yeah, George, that's a good question. The number one, we want to make sure, like any good team, you'll hear them, before you see it. So the communication, that's always something at the start of a training camp that you want to push, because they may have not been communicating together. Not all 90 of us were together. So if you're hearing the communication early, that's a good sign that that you're going to be able to play fast. So hearing the guys, because in this ramp up, and you'll see that not, we're building up on time onto the field. So there won't be a lot of plays. We'll progress into that, but let's hear it before the plays even begin.
Hi, Coach. Donna Hopkins, Pro Football Plus. In the OTAs, you talked about the process as far as the crawling, walking, and the running. In the running stage right now, are you seeing most of this team overall in that phase as they start training camp?
Yes, and it can even apply into a specific day. So, for instance, in an afternoon, like tomorrow afternoon, we'll install a new set of plays and some new situations. That'll be the crawling part of things. We'll go out tomorrow night for a team walkthrough and execute a lot of those. That's more of the walk part of it. And then the next day is the run. So I almost think of it in a day's block of teaching, jogging through to get the timing, the targets of what you want, and then can you go execute at a really high speed. And so we're going to have extremely high standards for the guys in the run part, as you were referring to, and me too. That's the spot. That's the execution. That's the connection that has to take place. And so that's what I'll look to see at the practice. And it'll take reps to go it over and over again. But it's not the first time, hearing, the systems as we're starting into these meetings again.
When you look at this team as a whole, are they where you thought they were going to be, or are they ahead in some areas?
That's a good point. I would say they would be ahead in some areas. Their connection has been faster and stronger than I thought. So that part came really to life because so many people were part of the off-season program. And so you saw that connection take place, and I felt a good level, and then I felt a shift take place, right around the end of the OTAs and into training camp, into the mini camp, where another one to go. And I'm expecting another one into training camp. So the communication and the connection amongst the players, that's the spot that I was pleased with to see where we're at. But like most things, once you are pleased with where you're at, that is where you will stay. So that is not from Yoda, by the way. But that, to me, is now it goes further. And adding people that we have, like Dylan, into our program adds connection, adds that. And so the stronger we get in playing for one another, the better the performances even become.
Good morning, gentlemen. David Harrison, Sports Illustrated. Coach, we talk a lot out here about perceived weaknesses or holes on the roster. Where are you most confident in your roster right now?
Yeah, a lot of spots, honestly. And what may be perceived as a weakness externally might actually be something stronger internally. And so more than anything, I'm looking for processes. How does this connection take place? How does the routes develop? Because once we get to what people can do, then we don't have to, well, you can't do that or you can't do that. We try to feature the things that guys do best. And so what would have seemed like a weakness, that's our job as coaches to say, we're either not going to put that specific player into that spot, or how are we going to help that person into that spot. So you want to have contingency plans. As coaches, you don't want to swing at shadows. So you're always thinking ahead. Okay, what if he's out? What are you going to do? All right, what if this player changed out? What would that look like? And so making sure you have those processes right and challenging the staff. Okay, he's out. What are you going to do? This package is in. What does that look like? So finding what they can do versus the weakness. We know what they are, and we're going to try to address those to say, when we're playing a game, to say, how are we going to go win this specific game? These are the matchups that we're going to do.
Thanks, Coach. And then, Adam, as far as continuously looking to have opportunities to build the roster and improve the roster, how does that evaluation process look at this stage of the offseason?
Yeah, I mean, it's every day. It's throughout the summer when we're away. We're always constantly talking about that, constantly talking to other teams, other GMs, whether it's a trade or whether it's internally with our short list and our emergency list. So figuring out, all right, where, if this happens, where do we go? And so we have all those processes in place, and this is a league where injuries do happen, and hopefully, knock on wood, we don't have too many. But we'll be ready when they do, and our team, led by Lance and David Blackburn, are all set and ready to go. So, yeah, it's something you're always doing. You're always monitoring. You're always challenging yourself to say, okay, have we explored every opportunity? And that's what we pride ourselves on doing.
Candy Waller, Bowie TV. This one is for you, Coach Quinn. Reflecting on OTAs, was there anything that you said, you know what, that didn't work out so well, maybe we won't do too much more of that, or something that went really well and said we got to do more of that?
All right, Candy, good. That is a good question. You're really making me think. I like it, Candy. Give me a second. Things that I definitely liked going through the spring, we took time before we got to football with the, not just the free agents that came or the veterans that were here, to get to know the man before the ball player. And I think that was an important process. So much as a coach, you just want to get right into the football and finding out somebody's why, more of their background, what do they stand for, why were some of the things important. I would say that's a good lesson, in building something. From a leadership standpoint, early on, I think in my life, I thought leading, how is it me leading others? And what I found out through processes is real leading takes place when you can identify and develop the leaders within themselves. And so I'm pleased with what we're seeing in that spot. I'm hopeful at the end of camp you ask me, hey, Dan, who are the leaders? And your hand cramps because I'm listing so many players. Things that I wish I could do differently as you're going to go, probably those are more like practice oriented. Could I have added more or less into it? I think one of the real fun things for everybody to watch is the addition of some special teams plays this year. And I know it's been a story of the off season, but I was pleased with the amount of work that we put in, but time will tell if it was enough work, Candy. So those are the things that I stress myself out and can't sleep at night. So thanks for bringing it back up. That's good.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that leads to my next question. My next question is about special teams. We saw some variety in the kick return, punt return role during OTAs. What are the characteristics you're looking for in that particular role?
Yeah, I think right now I see them a little bit differently because punt return is pretty traditional in the way of catch, initial quickness to make one miss. So if somebody was coming to have the ability to make one go, that type of change of direction and hands to go. Oftentimes they're fielding everything above them and they have to make one miss to get 6 to 7 yards. That's a good return usually if I can make one go. On the kickoff return, I think it's going to be a little bit different because it may involve more true running skills, running back skills. And so time will tell, but I do feel like the two positions are different because in a punt return, I may just make one miss, who are the gunners usually outside, but literally anybody could be coming on the new way that kickoff and kickoff return is going. So that part I do feel is going to be different, but they may even have to be more adept at fielding a kick that comes and hits the ground first, as opposed to forever we've just seen kickoffs come from the air and we catch, we want to be on the move. There may be a player that has to play infield as well as outfield, and the shortstop and center field. And so that kick returner this year better be adept at both.
For Coach Liam Griffin with the Washington Times. You guys have a couple of joint practices already scheduled. Looking ahead a little bit, how can those joint practices help your team as you're looking to build that identity during this training camp period?
I'll hit one part and I'll kick it over to Adam for the second part. There's a lot. One, it's good for competition. It's usually, and you'd like it to be, some different systems than you currently do. So the offenses at the Jets and at Miami are different than the one is here. So that's good for extra reps, for the offense or the defense. Same thing with the Jet defense and the Miami defense are played and installed differently. So different looks, different things to go. Those are helpful. And then there's an evaluation side that goes along with that too that I'll let Adam hit on. So it's twofold. One, new looks, new things. When you play against somebody over and over, you understand their releases, what some routes might be, and you can cheat a little bit. When you go in those other practices, you better be pure to what you're reading and how you're going to do it. And I'll let Adam refer to some of the evaluations. That's an important part of it too, because not every player plays the same amount in the preseason games.
Yeah, you get, I think, with those practices from an evaluator, one, like DQ said, you get to see our guys against a different offense or defensive scheme. How do they adapt to that? How do they play against that? And you get to see them against different players, too. So sometimes you're going to be going against, their defensive tackles may not be as strong as ours, and our offensive linemen look a little better, and you feel a little better about that. It's like they're not going against Payne and Allen every time. So, and then you get a chance to see the other team. You measure yourself against the other team. You see some guys at the back of their roster you may want to trade for. You may want to pick up as on the waivers. We're number 2 on the waiver wire, so we can get a chance to do that. But really just getting a chance to compare where you're at, where they're at the same time, not overreacting either, because you can think, oh gosh, these guys are way better than us, but it could be that 10 minutes in time, that 2 hours in time, where you underestimate your team or you overestimate your team and where you're at. So you don't want to get too high, too low, and where you're at. It's really a little bit of a balance, but they're invaluable. You get a chance to see guys compete without, with less of a chance of getting hurt, which is a big, big deal, and against a scheme that's different than yours. So it's really, really valuable.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you, guys.
A lot of heavy lifting.